You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans of the United States and Newfoundland, and an extra big hello to Canadian servicemen overseas.
Welcome, everybody, to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs Fan. Joining me, as always, my winger, Ricky Squid Vibe. Squid, don't look now, but I think we've got 24 episodes under our belt. We've had, I think, 16 guests. People are still listening. Man, oh man! I mean, I didn't think we'd get through the first one, and here we are. We're going into the new year.
It's like Hollywood, Mike. We're stars, and but our guests are probably the stars actually because they're hilarious, and I'm really looking forward to these best ofs because there's a lot of funny things in there.
Yeah, you're right. And, you know, we had some fantastic guests. The guys were great. They're very giving and sharing with their stories. And what we're going to do, folks, during the holiday season is we're going to play a best of. And we had so many to choose from. Our poor old producer, Caitlin, has been working around the clock on this. So we're going to break this off for the next 3 weeks. You're going to listen to the best of the Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan. Today, we're going to hear from Billy D, Jim McKenny, Paul Bissonnette, old Biz Nasty himself, who's been everywhere. Or you got Borje, who was live from Sweden when we talked to him, Ludzik from Niagara Falls, and we had Al Iafrate. He was in Michigan, I think, when we spoke to him. So we had guys coming from everywhere. So we have some memorable moments for you guys to listen to. Just on those first couple of ones, any that stuck out to you there, Squid?
I think the biggest one that stuck out to me was Jim McKenny when the coach came in and gave him and his partner crap because they were -3 or whatever in the period, or -4, I think it was, and he said, "Why don't you talk to the fucking franchise over there? If he had stopped a couple of those, we wouldn't have been a -4."
And he was pointing at Mike Palmentier, of course. But that's always the way.
I thought that was great.
That was a pretty good one. So, folks, we've got some great ones listening to you. We hope everybody has a good holiday. But here we are. Here's segment 1, listening to the best of, and enjoy it. Anyway, to start right off here, I think what people want to know is, where did the name Squid come from?
Oh, boy. This is, we're going back 41 years, I believe. When I was playing for the Birmingham Bulls in the WHA as a 19-year-old. Of course, who was my coach? John Brophy. And we were doing power play at one end, and everybody was kind of screwing around at the other end doing things. And it was our unit's turn to come down, and I was at the other end. So he was yelling. Of course, I came from PEI, so they all called me Spud. And Brof is screaming and at the top of his lungs for me to come down, but he's yelling Squid. And, of course, he's from Antigonish, Nova Scotia himself. And Craig Hartsburg says to him, "Who are you calling?" And he said, "Vive." And he said, "You mean Spud?" He said, "Squid, Spud, I don't give a shit what you call." He said worse than that, but I don't give a shit what you call him. Get him down here. So then I go on to Vancouver, and everybody just called me RV, and get traded to Toronto. We're in Minnesota, and Dave Burrows is standing beside me in warm-up. Craig Hartsburg comes up and says, "How you doing, Squid?" And then that was it. It stuck after that, and it's been there for, well, now 40 years.
Thrilled to join us on our inaugural podcast. And again, I want to throw that in, hopefully not our last. That we've got one of the guys who's, he obviously played in the middle with Rick a number of times here in Toronto. They hooked up together in Vancouver. This guy was just a prolific scorer himself coming out of junior hockey. None other than Billy Derlago. How are you doing today, my man?
Good. Nice to be here.
Great to have you. Now, listen, I got to get this one cleared up. And for those out there who really don't know a lot about Billy, and a lot of these guys who don't know what happened back in the 80s with Ricky, and of course with the 50 goals and Austin Matthews approaching that, Rick's record of 54, it's becoming more and more prevalent for people, and they're becoming more relevant again. But I just want to throw these numbers at you listeners out there. So listen to this. In 1977-78, Billy D scored in 52 games, scored 89 goals and had 63 assists, and was not first-team All-Star. He scored 96 the next year, so that worked, and that got him first-team All-Star.
And that was a record in the Western Hockey League until Ray Ferraro, I believe, broke it.
Yeah.
I mean, and two of his teammates were ahead of him. So Brian Propp and
I scored 96 was the record, and then Ray came in and played for the Wheat Kings too.
Oh, did he? He
Yeah.
played. I didn't know that.
106 or something like that.
I knew he broke your record, but I didn't know he played in
Yeah.
Brandon as well.
He played in
but-
Brandon, yeah. 1 year. Only played 1 year.
Now, in that year too, you were supposed to be in Montreal.
Yeah.
This is a great story. Tell us
Yeah.
this story.
I was went that summer to Team Canada Junior 78. That was the first junior team.
It was at
okay?
the
That's
Ora
right.
Walton
So
Sports
we
Camp.
went to the summer camp, and I met all the guys there, and Bobby Smith, and
Yeah,
all the top picks there, and so
I was shy. I think I don't know if you met me.
we were playing.
We'll get
So
into
I was
that.
playing against the Regina Pats, and the next day
Yep.
I was supposed to fly to Montreal for the tournament.
Yep.
I got hurt that night, and hurt my knee, so I was out for the year. And they called up. Guess who they called to replace me?
Some 16-year-old kid, I
Wayne
believe.
Gretzky. They called him. He was tearing up the Ontario League, I guess, and it was a good move by them.
And a good move for him, too, also. I mean, because there was a guy that was, tearing up the OHL, but again, he was 16. People were still wondering if this was real or not, or was a flash. And I know that a friend of ours played against him in Peterborough, and his dad was actually talking about sending him to Sweden to play in the Elite League to try to improve his skating. And then all of a sudden, Montreal came along.
See, the draft was 20 then, eh? And to
That's
be
right.
16 and compete against 20-year-olds, it was.
But a lot of people probably don't know that he was supposed to be there, and that was the first year they picked an all-star team for the World Juniors.
That's correct.
And that was 77, 78.
Yeah.
And then I believe after that they went back to Memorial Cup winners for a couple of years, and then decided to go back to the all-star team, and it's been like that ever since. But you imagine that he was supposed to be there, and he got hurt, and Wayne Gretzky took his place.
His phone rang about 5:30 in the morning, I guess, and he says, "Sorry to wake you up, but I wanted to tell you before, because in Toronto, 3-hour time change before it gets to the Toronto media and stuff like that." He said, "We just traded you to Toronto." I said, "Fantastic!" I was happy, okay, because I wasn't playing anyway. So a change is always good, and and as soon as I got to Toronto, Punch told me that we're going to play, and he stuck to his word, and that's all any hockey player wants is a chance, right? And he gave us the chance, and so
I remember that
I
day.
got a hold of Ricky, and I think he said they had to be at the rink at 10 in the morning. I pack our stuff, and he said the plane leaves at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, jeez." We don't know when we're coming back, so you take as much as you can, I guess. And so it was election day that day.
Yeah.
So me and Ricky, a couple of young guys, we were sort of going to have a couple of beers on the plane, I guess. And so we put up the hand, and the waitress, not the waitress, the stewardess said, I'll have a beer and bring my friend one here. We've got 5 hours to kill here. So the captain on the PA goes, "Welcome aboard, and today is election day, and there'll be no booze served till the election is over," or something. I said, "Oh my God!" But it was a good thing that it happened, okay? Because we got off the plane, and there was a few reporters there, so it worked out just fine. Yeah.
So that was good. So now what about your version of this? So
Well, mine was kind of different. I didn't have a place. I didn't have a apartment or anything. I lived with Glenn Hanlon in Burnaby because there was nothing available in Vancouver, believe it or not, when I got there. I lost the guy's name. Who was the little guy I roomed with?
Gary Lupel?
Gary Lupel. So we're going down. We get an apartment. Of course, the building's just being built. We're not getting in until February. So it's right beside Harry Neal's building where he lives. So we get back from a 14-day road trip, and we finally get into our apartment. And it's like, so we had a little party, little apartment warming thing. Phone rings, like Billy said, I don't know what it was, 6 or 6:30 or whatever in the morning. And
you guys are all still awake, by the way.
no. I'm sound asleep. But
Okay.
well, if you want to call it that. But the phone rings, and I'm going, wait a minute. What the heck? Our phone's not hooked up yet. How can it be ringing? So I grab it, and I go, "Hello?" And it's like Harry on the other line says, "Hey, Rick, it's Harry Neal." He says, "Buzz me in." I just slammed it down. I thought it was one of the guys screwing around, joking around or something. So rings again. I realize it is Harry. So I hit the button, which I thought was the right button to hit to open the door. And then I go get Gary up, and I said, hey, we got to hide stuff. Harry's on his way up. So we're throwing bottles, beer bottles, you name it, just in cupboards, anywhere we could find. And then it rings again. And he goes, you're not going to let me in? He said, forget it. Just come down to the front. So I go down to the front, and I open the door. Harry walks in. He goes, anyway, I wanted to let you know that we traded you to Toronto, and you and Bill Derlago. And I said, really? I said, I haven't been here that long.
You just got there, yeah.
And he goes, yeah, well, and I said, who did you get? And he said, Tiger Williams and Jerry Butler. And I actually laughed. I didn't mean to, but I laughed. And I don't think he thought that was very funny. But anyway, Billy picked me up. His wife drove us to the airport that day. And I remember the thing on the plane was hilarious.
And I heard, Billy, you actually offered her a little bit more money than the cost of the beer.
Yeah, we tried to bribe her with federal law or something like that. Could have been arrested.
So, Billy, you with, you must have, John Brophy, okay, there's let's use this phrase here, a polarizing figure to describe him probably at the best. You must have some stories.
I'll tell you two stories. Okay?
I got to hear these.
The first one is the first game of the year, okay?
Yep.
So we're all excited and stuff, and we're standing in, the little, by the stick room there. And he says, Billy, I need one more win for 500 and pro wins, he said. And I look at him and I said, hey, that's minor league shit, okay? You need 500 more for 500, okay? You have no wins at all. He turned purple. You know how red he used to get? So it wasn't a good start to our relationship. So a couple of weeks later, and we got the young team again. And so I'm a veteran, okay? And I think I just scored 40 goals or something like that. And I had 37 the year before. So life was I was pretty good. Comfortable, let's say.
Yes, that's good. That's good.
And after practice, he'd say, Bill, I want you to go do a few laps. And then I want you to go ride the bike, okay? I says, you got 7 rookies in the room there that are playing once, I'm a veteran. But I said, okay, I'll go do it. So I go into the room, and I grabbed a cup of coffee, and I took my smokes with me. So I'm just sitting on the bike watching TV, and I'm having a smoke and drinking my coffee. And he comes in and says, if you're not going to try, go home. And I just looked at him and says, I'll see you tomorrow.
One of the young players went to Jerry McNamara, who's the general manager, about Danny yelling at him. So Jerry, of course, went to Danny and said, you're not allowed to yell at the young players. So he took it out on us. So
that's you, Billy, and Johnny Anderson.
Well, this particular time,
yes.
That
time, okay.
But so we lost 2 games in a row, Friday night, or I think it was a Saturday night at home, and then a Sunday in, I believe it was Washington. And Monday morning, you get the paper delivered, and the headline says Maloney blames Derlago's line for loss, which was him and I and Billy.
It's not good when
John
your name's
Anderson
on the front page.
No.
But I know that the writers don't make the headlines.
Yeah.
It's the publisher or whatever, and sometimes it's different than what's actually in the article. But I read the article, and he actually did blame us and said it was our fault. So the next day, we're at practice, and at the end of practice, blows a whistle, says, okay, everybody come in. And he goes, everybody off the ice. Walt Podubny was coming back from an injury, and he said, Walt, Billy, John, Rick, you stay on the ice. I'm like, what the hell is this? Anyway, he says, okay, Derlago and Vive, start. You guys start skating this way. And of course, I was really pissed off. And I shouldn't have probably done what I did. The press are right there by the boards at the Gardens.
You shouldn't have done that.
But I said, you got to blame someone, because you can't yell at the young guys anymore, so you're taking it out on us. And then I started skating. And he's chasing me. And he's yelling at me.
I got scared,
And I'm just saying, I'm yelling back at him, and I'm telling him to fuck off, whatever, get out of here. And then Brof comes up to me, and Brof and I are friends, and yeah, I already played for him once. He goes, Squid, come on, like settle down. I go, and I just gave it to him too, and I said, you old, and I get the fuck out of here. So anyway, the next home game, he benches the three of us. Halfway through the first, I think it was, he started playing Billy and John. He sat me the whole game. And I remember there was a guy up in the stands behind us, and you know how quiet the Gardens could get.
Yeah. I'll never forget.
And that guy said, hey, Rick, he said, you're not very busy right now. Can you go get me a hot dog? And I wanted to turn around so bad and ask him what he wanted on it. But Danny moved with me all the way on the bench. Everywhere I went, he had his foot up on the bench right behind me, and I was worried that he was going to punch me in the head or in the face if I had got up and said that. And then right near the end of the game, I think we were down 2 or 3, and he put me out there with like half a minute left or something. There was a face-off in their end, and I wanted to ask him if he wanted me to tie it or if he wanted me to actually win it. And we were down 2 or 3. I can't remember.
We've got a great guest coming in to see us here today. Jim Howie McKenny. I mean, I think we could probably take up, probably do 3 or 4 podcasts with this guy, some of the background stories he has.
I'd like to see Gretzky play after eating a steak and having a couple of beers in the I put Billy up against him anytime.
You know,
well, that's a good point.
Now, speaking of which,
after a steak and 2 glasses of wine and 2 beer, I think Billy would win that one.
You go with Billy.
Yeah.
Okay, no, first off, just before we get started on this, like just so you, and this is probably right in the top of your mind, right on the tip of your tongue, on March the 11th, 1972, so this day, you scored a goal and you had an assist in a 2-1 win over the California Golden Seals. How about that?
God.
Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
I double checked.
In the who cares department. Okay.
So how about this?
I scored a goal and assist against the Seals on the road or at home?
I think that was at home.
No thinking. Either home or on the road.
You're supposed to know you're the guy who did it.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I answered this.
I don't even remember. I don't remember any of my career.
Well, let me ask.
I was in a fog for the 70s.
Well, let me ask this.
Very
Let's start off with this from his point. He is a beauty, isn't he? Let's start off with this. Howie, for the listeners out there, how did you get the name Howie?
Well, when I played junior, there was another guy on our team named Jim McKenny playing in the Metro League, right? And he played on Neil McNeil with me, and so our names were so similar. And he was a veteran, so they had to get a nickname for me. So I had a facial and behavioral resemblance to Howie Young, one of the finest alcoholics to ever play in the NHL. And they've been calling me Howie ever since. You know, I loved Howie too. Howie was great.
Now, the Leafs, you got called up as a junior. Like, walk us through that experience, or can you remember?
Yeah, well, it wasn't such a big deal because every time I got kicked out of school, I'd have to practice with the Leafs. So I was sort of, accustomed to being around the guys. Davey Keon used to give me a hard time all the time because he wanted me to move the puck, he'd be screaming at me. Right? I never wanted to play for them, but I got $100 to play, so it was quite a thrill. So my first game I played, I went to the track in the afternoon. I thought it'd be a little too nervous to sleep, so I went down to Greenwood and then got to the rink at around 5:30 or 6 o'clock and I think we played against Detroit or something like that. But I don't, it wasn't like a big deal. I figured I was going to play in the NHL for 10 or 12 or 15 years anyway. So, but nothing to get so excited about.
Well, you did. You lasted
a big deal. Yeah, it took me a little while to get there. I was 3 years in the minor leagues. I went to my first training camp at 215 pounds. My playing weight was like 185, 190, so I wasn't in real top shape. So I lasted about a day and a half, then got sent over the Rochester room, and then eventually got sent to Tulsa.
Now in Rochester, you roomed with Don Cherry.
That was later.
That was later
on in the story. Yeah, let me get.
That's
to
later
that
on to get to that part. Oh, okay.
I got kicked out of Tulsa first for being a bad influence on the other guys on the team. I'm playing with guys that are 25, 26, 28 years old, and I'm 19, and I'm a bad influence on them. So they sent me to Rochester, which I was thrilled to go there because my best buddy, Gary Smith, was the goaltender there. Terry Clancy was also playing there. And I knew something. I played a few games with Rochester when I was with the Marlies. So, Al Arbor was there, and, I was the 19-year-old full-blown alcoholic, and then there was another guy on the team that was pissing and moaning about everything. And so nobody wanted to room with either one of us, so then they put us together, and I ended up rooming with Grapes for like 3 years.
So how was that?
He resurrected my career. He gave me the confidence to get back on it.
But he enjoyed a beer himself.
He was fantastic. Huh?
But he enjoyed a beer himself, though, didn't he?
Well, yeah.
I mean,
he was pretty lightweight. Like 6, after the game, you'd have like 6. I'd have 6 for breakfast. It wasn't. He wasn't a real big guy. He enjoyed his beer, and all the guys did. But I got a little carried away with. Yeah. Like a lot of the guys were heavy drinkers, but they could always stop or moderate. I never could.
Yeah.
I didn't choose to be an alcoholic. I can't give you the date that I chose to be an alcoholic, but I was at 17 or 18 years old. It was full blown.
Yeah.
So like alcoholics, I know now are driven by 100 different forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity. So I was carrying that around with me for another 20, 22, 23 years. Gary Axe, the Axe.
Oh, the Axe. Okay.
His buddy's out there he lives in Encinitas now.
But that's a Smith as well. The guy is just called Suitcase. Yeah.
No, but they call him Suitcase out there, but his name is Axe.
So where did the Axe come from?
The Axe came from a guy named Wilbur Mao, who was a little challenged. Some guy was chasing Wilbur down Bloor Street. And
I thought you were going to say
with an axe. The guy had an axe. Yeah, and Smitty went out and tackled the guy. So from then on, he became the Axe. Mike Corbett nicknamed him the Axe, and that's what we called him ever since. That's why they couldn't afford to keep guys like Jimmy Harrison and Paul Henderson, Davey Keon, Ricky Lee, Brad Selwood.
Did you get a shot to go to WHA?
Not to mention Bernie Perrant was a pretty good goalie, wasn't he?
He did okay.
Stopped the puck, yeah.
How many left here? You did okay. What about you? Did you get a shot to go to the WHA?
Yeah, I could have gone to Chicago. They offered me $750,000 for 5 years. If they would have had the money, I would have gone. But, I think it all fell apart, and so I got offered that by Johnny too. That he had me and Ronnie Ellis and Henderson over to his place for dinner one night, and Gord Lightfoot was there with Kathy Smith was his girlfriend at that time, and I wanted to make a good impression, so I didn't start drinking until about noon, and got there at about 7:30, and I was flying pretty good. And we had dinner, and then he called us into his office, like he had the office, with all the leather-bound books and all that shit. And he says, "Well, I guess you guys know why I had you here. I want you all to come and play for the Toros." And so Henny says, "Well, we'd have to talk to Al first, Eagleson." I said, "Screw Al, what kind of money you offering?" He said, $750,000 for 5 years. That's $150,000 a year. I said, "If you got the contract, I'll sign it right now." But he could only afford to sign one of us, and Henny was Mr. Canada by then, and so they got him. And then, but in the meantime, Ronnie and I signed with the Leafs for like double or triple what we were making before. So, it was great. I thought I hit the lottery. I'm from Ottawa East, right? I'm making $120,000 a year. Holy Christ.
Some of the characters in the game, like, did you meet any of your equivalents throughout playing?
Oh, no. Guys like Derek Sanderson or...
Yeah, like just some of the characers that you got to chum with.
Turnbull. Was Turnbull there when you were there?
Yeah. The Hawk.
He was a beauty. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, when he got traded to L.A., he had to. I guess he owed the government some back taxes or something.
Oh,
it was quite a bit. Yeah. So we're in Colorado, and Jerry McNamara is the GM, and I forget who was the coach at the time. I guess it would have been Floyd Smith, probably. Anyway, we're at the one of the restaurants, and all the guys are there, and the brass are at a table there. So we're all leaving at like 10:45, and Hawk's sitting in a big leather chair with the arms and everything, with a great big snifter or whatever of cognac.
Cognac, yeah, I like that
and,
stuff.
And he was still there when they walked out, and he got traded the next day, so he got his wish.
Is there any one story you want to leave us with before you go? But it's been very enlightening.
No, I love playing because of the guys. You know? I loved all the guys, and a lot of people wonder if you were really upset when guys jumped to the WHA and all that stuff. I wasn't really, because it gave more guys a chance to play. You know?
And make more money.
Oh, God, yeah. Bobby Hull was my all-time idol. He did more for hockey than anybody in the history of the game.
We got paid well to do it too, though. But still.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bettman, but maybe you're second.
Well, he's
if he was in my backyard, I'd close the curtains. But Bobby was great. Bobby, taking a chance and going to Winnipeg like that. If he hadn't gone, the league wouldn't have got credibility and. And then Cheevers went, and then Keon went, and
Sanderson.
Yeah.
So today our guest is certainly a social media sensation, to say the least, along with being also part of the popular podcast Spittin' Chicklets, and also is the color commentator for the Phoenix Coyotes. But before all that, he had a long-time career playing pro hockey with stints in the National Hockey League. He played junior in the O, player of the game in the prospects game for Team Orr, couple under 18 gold medals. Man, oh man, what a career. And then Calder Cup with Manchester. We're going to get into all of that with the one and only Paul Bissonnette. I would be remiss, again, speaking Chicklets, walking right into it. The name today, the juvenile side of me came out right away, along with every other guy, was Seattle's name, the Kraken. I mean, this is going to be, this could be laid up on a tee for you guys with all the names and the fun you could have with it. Biz, I got to throw that one to you.
Oh, well, we went through it when the original expansion idea of going to Seattle came up, and RA must have listed like 60 names off. And yeah, we were joking. I thought it was the cranking. And then they all joked around about cranking it. But no, I think it's a great name. I really like the logo and how simple it is. In the one anchor, they implemented the Space Needle in it. So they just there's a lot of thought that went behind it. And, I think it's great. I think Seattle definitely needs another sports franchise. I'd imagine that, considering they're getting the rink, an NBA team wouldn't be probably too far behind it if they're looking to expand. I know they already had one, but it create the rivalry with the Vancouver Canucks. And I think at 32, that's the perfect size. I don't think you need to water down the league anymore.
Biz, you grew up in Ontario playing in the O, and you had some decent success. You're a good player coming up out of the Welland area. First off, do you cheer for Toronto growing up, the Leafs?
I cheered for individual players more so than teams, but yeah, I was a fan of the Leafs. I mean, my father watched them all the time. I was a big Doug Gilmour fan. I liked the energy he brought to the rink, and I just, I was a big Adam Foote fan as well. I just like certain players and the type of dynamic they brought. So yeah, I guess I could say I was a Leaf fan. I actually got a signature from Dougie Gilmour on a leather ball cap that my parents had got me for Christmas at the Penn Center in St. Catharines. And I had it forever. I had a Gilmour jersey. So yes, I would say I gravitated to Toronto because of him.
Coming from Welland, and the Toronto is so proud of their players and what they are. How was that day for you, like as a hockey player getting drafted?
Oh, geez. Okay, so the draft was in Nashville, and I was actually projected, I think, 56th overall. So back then, they used to do the first day, the first 3 rounds would go, and then the next day it would be 4 through 9. And I think now the NHL's changed to only 7 rounds. And, I go there with my new suit, and I was excited, and I ended up dropping to the 4th round. So I spent that whole first day with my thumb up my ass, Rick, and I was upset. I was upset that I didn't go, right? I felt like I'd let my family down, and all my family and friends who had traveled to come watch that, and they could see how upset I was. But, I wasn't a guy to sulk and suck on my thumb. So I ended up going out with all the guys who I'd played under 18 with, and knew that night, because they'd been drafted in the first first three, excuse me. And, we went out and got drunk. And I ended up, meeting a nice lady, and I played a road game, as they say. And I was roommates with Dan Fritchie, and he'd gone in the first 3 rounds as well. And he took off. So when I went back to my room in the morning and I woke up a little bit late, I had to go put my suit back on and go to the draft for second day. Well, what do you know? I changed out of my suit to go out the night before. My suit was gone. Thank God my mother had packed my backup suit, but mind you, it was a who shot the couch. This thing was awful. Okay, so I used to throw my dress pants of my second suit in the washer then dryer. That's how fucking bad this suit was. So I show up here with my hair all curly and going crazy, and in this terrible suit. And I was drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins, who I had a great meeting with. I let out a big yell when I was drafted. I was so excited to go to that team because I'd had such a good meeting with them. And I was, of course, drafted as a defenseman, and ended up switching to forward. But it was a weird day in Nashville, but a great one at that. Yeah, I mean, survival. I'll start with that one. That's definitely that's a great word to sum up my career, because I was drafted as a defenseman, and at first they were so stacked on the back end, Pittsburgh, when I finally signed my contract and turned pro, that I started in the ECHL. And, kind of going back to that comment I made about going to play single A as opposed to triple A, it helped me. I gained that confidence. I ended up being a 2-time ECHL All-Star as a defenseman. But, Rick, probably not as hard for you, but what I notice is that the higher you jump up, it's just the players are just so fucking good. And it was hard for me to become a dominant defenseman at the AHL level. And if you can't dominate the American Hockey League at your position, you're not going to go to the NHL and sustain an NHL career. So after going up and down a few times, Pittsburgh, they called me back up to the American League that last time. And when I got to the rink and my name and number were on the board, it was at fourth line left wing. And I think no pun intended, the writing was on the wall as to, like, if I was going to make it to the National Hockey League, I knew what I was going to have to do. I was going to have to transform my game to what I thought was a defensive defenseman who could add maybe a little bit of upside offensively to, okay, maybe you could actually get there as a fourth line scrapper. And I fought a little bit in junior and a little bit in the ECHL, but my first 2 years when they'd switched me to that position at the American Hockey League level, I fought 30 times back to back, and I was fighting heavyweights. I was getting my fucking eyes pumped in, Rick. It was hell. But did I want to play in the NHL or not? And I did it, and eventually I got to play my first game with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it was surreal. I got to play with Evgeny Malkin, Sidney Crosby, Fleury, Letang, like you name it, like legends. And I got to spend a half a season with that team. Scotty Upshaw asked me, why don't you get on Twitter? You can really joke around on there. And I just didn't understand it. I heard Charles Barkley talking about it, how stupid it was on ESPN at the time. And I agree with him, because a lot of people, what they were doing is they were doing it to just update people, being like, this is what I'm doing. But then I realized that you could go on there and joke around and interact with fans. So when I hopped on one summer after training, it was this, the season after we were getting some time off. And I remember Scotty Upshaw saying it. I said, I'll check out what this is. And it just became fun that you could be that close with fans and give them a glimpse of inside the life of what it was like to play in the National Hockey League. And I didn't take it for granted for a minute. So I think they were just grateful that, the fans were getting like, oh, like what's going on their plane? And, I'd be posting a picture of like inside the private jet or whatever it was. So they found it fascinating. It was something that happened very organically. And I'm fortunate, because I think the one thing that a lot of guys, after they spend their entire lives doing something, is they don't know what's next. Half of these guys probably played junior and didn't take their education seriously because they thought they were going to play hockey forever. And the ones that did is you walk away with not a lot of life skills outside of hockey. Mm-hmm. Well, I was fortunate where I get to now stay in the game and be involved in media inside the only thing that I've really ever known, and that's hockey. So It took me on a wild ride, and you kind of alluded toward it at the end of your what we said about the last answer is the hard work. Is that's one thing that hockey taught me is you got to get up every morning and you got to work. You got to put the work boots on, and I've never been shy to work hard. I kind of got that from my parents, especially my mother. And it's kind of just led into what's happened post career, and I couldn't be more grateful for it. Of course, at the NHL level, guys are making quite a bit of money, and I spent that first year in the NHL up and down. I ended up playing 15 games. I was probably there for about 35, and had the chance to play with Evgeny Malkin, as I mentioned. So the following year, I was at training camp, and they'd gone to the finals and lost to Detroit. And Malkin had an incredible season, hit all these bonuses in his contract. So I'm riding the stationary bike next to him, Rick, in training camp. And the PR guy at the time comes over and he drops off an envelope. And Gino, as we call Evgeny Malkin, as he's riding the stationary bike sweating, he peeks in and you could see a smirk on his face, and he puts it in the cup holder. And I said, Gino, I said, what is that? And he goes, chick. I said, check for what? And he's like, bonus. I said, show me. And he kind of like, and I said, come on, show me. And he handed it over to me, and I looked inside of it, just shy of $1 million. I couldn't believe my eyes looking at a check. I thought it was a phone number for crying out loud. It was, although they are 7 digits, but it was just shy of $1 million. And I said, oh my goodness, this is the National Hockey League right here. So that was a quirky story that I had.
My last year in Buffalo, we were going to San Jose. It was San Jose's first year in the league. So we went out there about 4 days early. And of course we had stopped initiations and the hazing and all that kind of stuff. So what they did was if there was however many rookies they would take the whole team out for dinner, and they would pay for it. So we go to this nice restaurant not too far from the hotel, and there's LaFontaine, myself, Dale Howard, Chuck, and we're all there, and the whole team's there. We have 5 rookies, I believe, at the time, and so anyway, all of a sudden I look and I see a couple of guys are ordering Dom Perignon and like $300 bottles of wine, and I looked at Dale, talked to Dale and LaFontaine, and I stood up and I said, guys, be reasonable. Like, just, $75 bottle of wine is fine, but not 200 or 300. And anyway, at the end of the night, the bill still ended up being like, I think it was $8,000.
Oh my goodness.
So those five guys had to split that $8,000. But boy, it was a great meal. The shrimp were about that big.
Guys taking advantage of rookie party, that's a tale as old as time. The worst one that I heard was Chris Bork, and I want to say it was in Boston when he got called up, and he was the only rookie. And they ended up racking him up for just shy of $25,000. One guy. He was the only rookie on that. Now his father's Ray Bork, so I'd imagine he's probably got a nice trust set up. So I don't think too many guys are feeling bad for him. But the surf and turf platters, the expensive bottles of wine, the Louis I had a shot of Louis the 13th at my rookie party. It was in Chicago, but what do they call it? They called it a prairie fire. So they get me a shot of Louis the 13th with, I think it was over $100 shot, and they doused the rest of the glass in Tabasco sauce.
Tabasco sauce, yeah.
So I had to shoot this thing. I ended up going back over.
I got a good one for you.
Oh, Jesus. Light the campfire.
Darren Pang.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, you work beside him probably a few nights a year. So when I was in Chicago, we're in Hartford, which actually was Springfield because the roof had we were in Hartford. And so instead of them buying us dinner, we said, okay, we're going to go to the bar and we're going to drink. And the rookies, I forget what it was, 15 minutes or half hour, would have to drink a shot of Jägermeister. So one of the guys was chewing tobacco and was spitting in a shot glass and happened to put it on the table. So the waitress comes over with a whole tray of Jägermeisters, puts them all on the table.
Oh.
Time to drink. Panger grabs that glass and swallows it. And I never saw a guy run to the bathroom so fast and puked his guts out for about 15 minutes and then came back and then grabbed one and threw it back and said, okay, I'm good now. And Panger, all about what, 5'7" maybe?
He ain't a big guy.
I don't know. Oh, he was a great guy, great teammate.
Oh, he's awesome.
Great guy.
Oh my goodness, that is disgusting.
As always, we will watch with great hope and interest, but it's time to bring our guest on. So without further ado, one of the first Europeans to play in the National Hockey League, made an immediate impact with the Maple Leafs, becoming a premier defenseman of his era, inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1996 that is, named one of the greatest 100 players of all time in the NHL, and of course, an elite Maple Leaf, one of the best of all time, known as the King. We welcome Borje Salming. Now, Borje, you and Inge are flying to Canada for your first training camp. What was going through your mind coming across the ocean and flying into Toronto? Any idea what you were going to face?
Well, what was good was because we visited Toronto, before, like a couple months before, which was really good because then we saw the gardens, we saw everything around a little bit, so that was really nice. And they, Jim Gregory and I met Harold too, and Jerry, they were so nice. So we really felt comfortable to go over. But of course, I didn't speak good English, but that was the only regret when I was sitting on the plane over there, because I said to myself in the school, I said, when I was reading English, I said, what do I need that for? But when I was sitting on the plane over, I said, holy shit, why didn't I read? What I remember the first time we skated at the Gardens, that was when we came 4 or 5 days before the training camp. And me and they asked us, do you want to skate? You want to go and skate? Yeah, okay, we can go skate. So me and Inge went out on the ice, and then we saw everybody was sitting up in the stands, all the, Harold and everybody, I guess, the whole day I guess they were anxious to see us too, see if we could skate, at all. So me and Inge, we said to each other, we said, listen, because we have been skating with Brynäs, for 2 months. So we were really prepared for the training camp. We said, let's really show them now. So we skated like crazy, shooting the puck and everything. So really tried to show them no, we can play hockey. So, and Jerry told me afterwards, many years afterwards, he said, listen, that time, because he was so nervous because nobody else had seen us play, sort of like Bob Davison, but then everybody sort of looked up to Jerry, oh my God, they're good. And we sort of said, okay, yeah, well, what did I say?
How did you find all that when you first arrived? Did that surprise you, or were you expecting that?
No, not really. I mean, in Sweden too, of course, everybody, they were not professional back home. Everybody has a job and work daytime and all that stuff. So you can't go and have a beer because you have a practice, then you go back to work for some of the guys. But in Canada, that was really good. Like Squid say, that's really important to join the guys. And, of course, you see each other in the dressing room and everything, but that's really important, off the ice and, sit and, have a chat and discuss different things. And then you really get so much closer to each other. And that's how you build a team, I think. And not just drinking beer, but I have a beer, then everybody sort of relax and, maybe want to say something and everything, everybody's listening to everybody too, so.
We got treated very well. Borje treated us extremely well. And I remember Borje having a few parties at his house to get the guys all together and so on. And I remember the one time you had a beautiful place in Hyde Park. And I remember going into the kitchen and looking for a beer or something. And I opened a fridge and it was just all bottles of vodka, the whole fridge. You had 2 fridges. And I went, oh, okay, this is different, but you know what? That Borje had those get-togethers to make us feel like we were all a team. And I really, really enjoyed that. I thought it was really good that he did that. And, but you know what? It just made us all feel more comfortable.
Maybe not the first year, but that was tough. You know, everybody tried to hit you and try to get you off the ice. But then when Philly got, you know, really, you know, when they won the Stanley Cup and everything, then and really, really scared. I mean, there's a lot of guys in my team too. They hated to play against Philly because they were so rough, because we didn't have no tough guys. But then all of a sudden, after a couple of games or a couple of years, then we got Tiger and a few other guys. Then we had some more, like, you know, toughness. So then it was so much easier for us.
Well, now what about, okay, so let's keep on with that Philly theme. A couple of those playoff battles with you guys.
Uh-huh.
I recall one moment, I think probably the defining moment for you, I think watching you play anyway back in those days, the night that you got jumped by, sucker punched and jumped by Mel Bridgman at the playoffs, and the series was pretty rough. There was the battle in the penalty box, you know, Roy McMurtry report, the police charges, all that stuff. And it was just, you know, it was the way the Flyers were playing at the time, which was setting hockey back. But that's another whole story. But the following game, you scored a goal, a very emotional goal against them, and you danced down the boards, and I think that was a defining moment for you. I don't know if you feel the same way, but where all of a sudden the fans, they were totally bought into you, that you showed up, you got beat up by the guys, like the Thugs and the Assassins, and you showed up the next game and scored a big goal and didn't quit.
Well, that's true. I mean, either I was stupid or I don't know, but I never, I didn't really think of it. Like, you know, I knew they were after me. And of course, you know, after a couple of years when I was more offensive and was much better, they really tried. I knew that. They tried to get me out. They tried to, you know, sort of, I always say, they tried to kill me. You know, I knew that, you know, when those guys tried to when they shot the puck in, when you know, Schultz and the Hound Dog or whatever they'll call it, I knew they were not going to, like, skate it in with the puck. They shot it in my corner, and they weren't going to fucking kill me in there. So I sort of jumped on the puck a little earlier. I could see that, you know. So I jumped in, they got the puck, and then pass it out. And then all of a sudden, you know, when you forecheck, you come in maybe one on one side, one on the other side. No. That was three guys coming right in my corner. But I passed it up, and then I up with my stick and tried to sort of protect myself. But then we had 3-on-2 instead, so I knew that.
Yeah, and do you remember that goal you scored that I talked about?
Oh, yeah. No, that was really fun. And that was a little bit what me and Daryl, we had sort of in practice, you know, sometimes I pass it up to him and I follow the play. And he went, you know, just a little, he did a little turn. And then he looked up and I went right in the middle of the defenseman and went in. That was sort of a play we had from before. So I was all alone with Perron. And luckily I scored.
We've touched on the playoffs. When you went into the playoffs for the first time, the intensity level rises to a level that people just, it's unexplainable to people unless you actually experience it. Your first time going through, did you actually sense that, or did the players warn you that the intensity level would increase volumes when you started playing for real in the playoffs?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's intense. You could see it in the dressing room. Everybody was just going, like, you know, more crazy. And of course on the ice it was the same thing. You know, everybody sort of you gave it more than ever, you know, in every game. But of course you always, you know, got to play your game. Not naturally, you can't go all over the limit. But of course it was something. You were going extra somehow.
Unless you have Red Kelly with the pyramid power, and then that would solve everything, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they gave a lot of power. Well, that was a fun thing too. I couldn't, you know, from the beginning, you understand what he was trying to do. I think he mentally tried to sort of get you a little stronger and better, you know. It works mentally, not you know. Yes, we put the sticks in the inside that and everything like that, and I, you know, for me, I said, well, if that's going to help me, fine. I mean, I did it too. Like, you know, it can't hurt you anyway. So, you know, but then he had a pyramid under the bench too. So hopefully he gave me some more stamina. I don't know.
Did you do any crazy things like that, Rick? Any rituals for you guys? Hockey players are superstitious, as we all know. What about some of the crazy things your teams have done over the years, or anything?
No, not really. I mean, I wasn't a real superstitious guy. I'm pretty sure I put my equipment on the same way every single time. I don't think it was on purpose. I think it was just habit that I put my left skate on first and would then right skate, whatever it is. But I guess you probably could call it superstitious, but I think it was more of just habit. But I would always I'd take my stick the same way all the time, and I would put it in a certain spot just outside the dressing room before we would go out to play. So there was a few things like that I did, and a few things before the game. I would always tap the post, and in the warm-up, I would always take a bunch of pucks around the net, and I'd always, go upstairs with them to make sure that if I ever got that situation in a game that I was going to get it over the goalie. So, yeah, there was a few things that I did, but, it's not something that those things I did on purpose. I did, purposely, but some of the things were just habit. Some were superstitious. I wanted to ask you, and this is something that I've wondered for so long, but because Harold Ballard came to me in when I was 22 years old, and he didn't ask me, but he just told me, "You're the captain." Yeah. And my thought was, okay, if I say no, he's going to trade me, and I don't want to be traded. I love it here in Toronto. I want to stay here. Did he ask you to be captain? Because I know that Matt's called you when he was asked, and you told him not to turn it down. Were you ever asked to be captain when Daryl left?
If they asked me to be a captain?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, after Daryl left.
Yeah.
They did?
They did. Not the first year, but after, I don't know if it was the same year or the year after, he wanted me to be a captain. And they asked me actually twice, one year, and I said no. Because I think my English, I didn't want to be out and have speeches and all that stuff, a little bit like that. But also, I knew what Daryl went through before he left. And I didn't want to go through that. I want to play hockey and not be in between the management and the players. I wanted to be with the players. That's what I love to play with the guys and play with, and be with the guys. So I didn't want to be somebody's, who was between everybody. So that's why I told they had meetings with me, and Harold said, "You got to be the captain." And I said, "No, I don't want to be the captain." So I don't know if we didn't have a captain for 2-3 years, right? So we had 3 A's instead. So and I was the captain anyway, so I was sort of holding on to it anyway. So that was not a big deal really, but I didn't want to go through what Daryl did. And I think that you said yes, that you said yes to the captain, that was good, because Toronto Maple be a captain with Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, if I look back, I should say yes, of course. But there happened too much under that time, those 2-3 years before Daryl left. I mean, that was no fun time, not for Lanny, Daryl, and everybody who sort of got traded because of Punch. I mean, and that has nothing.
In my case, I was 22 years old. I knew I wasn't ready to take over as a captain at that point. But like I said, I'm pretty darn sure that if I had told Harold no, that he might have traded me. And that was something that at that point in my career, I certainly didn't want to get traded again. And so I did say yes, even though I knew that I wasn't really prepared for it at that time. But I had a lot of help from you and some of the other guys. And I think a couple of years later, then I was ready.
Right. So, Borje, just going back a little bit, the 1976 Canada Cup, and you're playing for Sweden. Yep. And I was at this game, actually, at Maple Leaf Gardens. The ovation you got before the start of that game when they introduced you, do you remember, what was going through your mind standing on the blue line that night?
Well, you know what? The first game was actually with USA, right? And I got the standing ovation. I had no clue at all. you know, a little bit, you know, I knew like, you know, Toronto, like they were so, you know, Canadians, Americans. So I thought they like maybe boo me. And I had something like that. I don't know. Now here I come in with I have a Swedish sweater on and not sort of a Toronto Maple Police sweater on. So, and all of a sudden, you know, they started to clap their hands and all the stuff when I came up from the bench. And then when I stand there, I said, "Oh my God!" And then all of a sudden they're standing up, and I couldn't believe like they never stopped either. So I started to turn around a little bit, and then sort of I said, I couldn't understand what they were doing, but that was amazing. And now afterwards, you know, I understood. You know, they really, you know, somehow they really liked me, you know, because you know I've done something good there. You know, that's what they wanted to show me, and I was really appreciate that. But on the other hand, what I forgot, when I played Canada, they did the same thing.
Yes.
And that game was worse because Daryl and Lanny was playing in the other side. And I don't know if they got a standing ovation, but I got a standing ovation, and more than like, you know, those guys who were Canadians, and Canada is Canada, you know, for, you know, the best team they have in Canada.
Our guest today was chosen by Chicago 28th overall in the 1980 entry draft, played most of his career for the Hawks, coached in the minors along with a stint in the NHL with the Tampa Bay Lightning for a few years before embarking on a media career. He's a fellow author like you and I, and now spends his time running his foundation for the fight against Parkinson's. Please welcome Steve Ludzik. You met him on a bus, I think, one time. He was on you guys were in a very competitive state, going back and forth at each other's, even at the 74 Quebec Pee Wee tournament.
Yeah.
And you introduced yourself to him on the bus, and he actually said, you said, "I'm Steve Ludzik," and he said,
"Oh, no, you just told, I know I didn't get it. I was at a Toronto Marley hockey game with my best friend, Johnny Kirk. That's okay. Plus, it was a Subway.
Okay.
And Gretzky was supposed to play Bantam against us that year. I played for the Marlies. He played for the Nats. And he came on the compartment. It was just him and a guy named, I can't remember right now. His dad owned motor ski. Doesn't matter. And I said, "That's Gretzky." I said, "Kirky, my best friend." I said, "That's Gretzky. I'm going to go down and wish him luck. And hopefully, we'll see him along the way this year." He goes, "Ludzik, don't go down there. Don't go down there." I said, "I got to go down. You guy's great." I go all the way down the middle. There's nobody in the car. He's sitting, Bruce Ivanish is the guy he's sitting with. And I said, "Wayne, Steve Ludzik." And he said, "I'm not Wayne, I'm Yogi Bear." And I was just like, oh man. And it was just, I walked back and my buddy, Johnny Kirk, said, "Man, he make you look bad, like really bad." And I said to Kirky, I said, "I'm gonna get him this year for that slate. If I don't get him in junior B, I'm gonna get him in junior A. If I don't get him junior A, I'm getting in the National Hockey League." Well, son of a bitch, I never got a chance to play. He played a year earlier junior, and then he went to National Hockey. We were still playing junior hockey. But he was. I can't say anything. That was not like him. He was usually a pretty a very nice man, and he's turned into a great spot for the National Hockey League.
Well, then
that's where you got me. It was a bus. It was a Subway. Yeah.
Okay. So, but then didn't you play against him in two-handem the first time you played against him? And
yeah. And he said to me, "What's that for?" I goes, it was Fred Flintstone. He called himself.
Yeah.
Yogi Bear. I said, "That's fucking payback, Fred Flintstone for." And he goes to Paul Coffey on the bench. He goes, "Your buddy Ludzik, he's got like some screws loose because he tore my hand off with a slash." And he goes, he just has a long memory. Michael, I want to tell a quick story if I can about.
Absolutely, you can.
I went out for dinner with this gentleman down here in New York City, and I didn't make a lot of money. And I watched my pennies as strong as I could.
Yeah.
And Dennis Savard, we were a very close team, but sometimes you go for dinner and some guys go off here. I go to Swiss Chalet. But
not that night.
I go with Squid, Dennis Savard, and I can't remember who, Dougie Wilson. Like, that's pretty big company, right? And the bloody menu from Smith and Wollensky, just the sounds of it, I know it's going to be expensive. And I'm looking at the steaks here are $60 a steak. And the waiter comes over and he says, I really recommend the shrimp cocktail. And I said, $25 a shrimp cocktail. I bet you recommend it. And Squid just fell off his seat. And we won the next night in New York.
Yeah.
And Squid goes, see, Ludzik, he always comes back to help you. You pay a little bit more for the meal. You got a goal tonight. We won in New York. Everything's good. Everything's fun. But I tell you, what I learned the most is Squid. When you play against them, there's some guys you play against, you don't really realize how good they are. And there's other guys, when you play with them, you go, geez, he's not as good as I thought. Rick Vide was a guy that you didn't realize how hard he worked to score. And when you play against him, you said, honey, he was like RoboCop in front of the net. Like he took beatings, and I think by the time you finished, you had a horse collar around your neck, armadillo padding in the back. And they weren't, and he had a great shot. But I think I always try to steal something from everybody I play with. And Ricky was always good to his fans, always a gentleman. And he came to play.
Now, what about some of the coaches you played for in Chicago? You played for some pretty fiery guys. So let's start with, you mentioned Orville already. Let's go to him. Now, the players had a different name for him. I think they used to call him oral testicles.
No, they used to call him Mount Orville.
No.
Lava was spewing all over the dressing room. I didn't mind that, though. I remember Roger Nielsen was our assistant coach at the time. And Roger was a technical guy because Orville wasn't technical at all. He was fire and brimstone. And we were watching film, and the shot from the point, and it was right along the ice. And Orville said, that's where the puck should be, right along the ice for shot deflection. And Roger, instead of keep quiet, Roger went, well, we've done tests in Vancouver, and you got to keep about 3 feet to 4 feet off the ice so it doesn't get tipped. Well, we had the coaches going at it right in front of us. And when you know the goal was scored right along the ice, and Orville go, well, how about this goal? This isn't 3-4 feet on the ice. And Roger's like, yeah, but that's, I liked Orville. Bob Pulford took over twice as a coach and from his GM position. And they were all old school. Like Squid, you remember, like, let's get our bag of flesh. We're not winning. Let's skate for an hour and a half. Squid and I were involved in the worst bag skate I've ever been seen in captivity with Mike Keenan. Squid, the poor guy, cramped up like a shrimp and a Barbie on the ice. He's in a fetal position. And I'm telling you, Mike, skating, when you were in trouble, when half the team comes up in red and half the team comes up in black, you know you're in trouble. And Squid might recall Dennis Savard after about 10 minutes. He wouldn't stop. He'd turn at the end and do a wide, and Keenan would go, red, let's go again.
Go again. And
he did it 3 times. Sadly, it didn't hurt him to skate. And
Doug Wilson
grabbed him and threw him. Yeah, you remember that, Squid?
Yeah, threw him against the board.
Threw him against the glass. And then Savvy went out of his mind. He really overheated. He started taking all his equipment off, like something slap shot, arm pads here, stick there, and he's yelling for Denton Slett to open up the door, get me out of this place. And he literally had a meltdown. His gasket's overheated.
Yes, today had a very short OHL career, along with representing his country at the 1984 Olympics, USA, of course, I'm talking about, was the 4th overall pick in the 1984 entry draft by the Toronto Maple Leafs. A solid ex-teammate of yours, Al Iafrate.
Oh, it was just, obviously, I thought I had worked hard, and then when I got to the NHL, it was because, geez, I don't know if Squid remembers our first training camp, but literally we were on the ice for 6 hours a day, man. Like the first week to 10 days, we'd have a morning skate, an afternoon skate, I think a night skate. It was just unbelievable. And it was like, I thought I was in shape and I thought I had worked hard to get to where I was, but then I realized, okay, this is a whole nother level of working hard and commitment and, understanding the game, learning the game. And then there was the whole aspect of how much more physical the game was, especially being in that division we were in, realizing that was kind of a precursor to what was coming.
Yeah.
It was a lot to comprehend and, you know, internalize, and it was hard. Being 18, it was like, I'm fast as hell, man. I don't need to worry about anything. I just get the puck and go. And then all of a sudden there's dudes that are 28 years old that are just as fast as you. So once they get 2 steps on you, you can't catch them. And that was the difference, trying to learn that, because in my mind, I was like, I can catch anyone. So if I make a little mistake, it's no big deal. And then all of a sudden, you know, Gretzky's passing it to Curry, Curry's passing it to Anderson, Anderson's passing it back to Coffey, and you're skating around like a madman doing nothing, right? And it was a lot of learning going on.
So did any of the veterans take you under their wing? Like anybody come in? How did 22 treat you when he first met you?
It was great. All the veterans there were, you know, happy guys, fun guys, very accommodating to all of us young guys. Everyone was accommodating. It was, but you're kind of in awe because, you know, 6 months earlier, you're watching all these guys on TV. And like I said, and it might be because I look at the world in rose-colored glasses, but I had no idea I'd be playing in the NHL. You know, when I was playing junior in March and April after the Olympics in Belleville for the playoffs, I had no idea, or, you know, I don't think I was ever thinking about playing in the NHL when I was playing junior, because I was kind of worried about what I had to do for the time I was, you know, the time frame I was in at that moment in time.
You know, you may not have a job, but if you don't show that if you went on the ice smiling when the team is losing, or you try to loosen things up, he's just crazy enough to turn around, fire him, and bring in a guy up the street to run the team. So, I mean, all this, the clown-like atmosphere that was going on in the circus atmosphere, that didn't help the situation, I'm sure now. I mean, as an 18-year-old kid, and all you young guys, it had to be pretty tough for you. So, I mean, keeping all that stuff in mind, was there a moment in time, or defining moment is the word I always like to use with players, is where you thought you finally made it, you could actually step back and take a bit of a breath and say, geez, after all of this run I've had the last couple of years, I'm actually can settle in and just play hockey?
Yeah, I'd have to say it was in my second year. That's kind of where everything got figured out. You know, I had a great training camp. And then I shattered my nose and cheekbone, I don't know, like the middle of training camp. And they had to do surgery, so I didn't skate for like about a month. And I got smoked in a fight. And that kind of like woke me up in that, okay, you know, this is more about, this hockey is, this is serious. This is like serious. I've got to get tougher. I got to get stronger. I got to work harder, you know, because I went from, you know, all of that and came to camp a little out of shape, although I was having a, you know, once I did get into shape, I was having a good camp. And
well, even when you weren't in shape, you were still the fastest guy on the ice anyway, so that didn't really matter.
But, you know, it was all those things like it came to a head where, you know, I didn't come into camp in great shape. Came off of a really bad year where we had the first pick overall, so we were the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
Suffered a major injury. And then, you know, it kind of woke me up that this is, it's not La La Land. This is like real life. And, you know, you're only as good as your last play. Thank God there wasn't social media then. Phones with cameras on them.
Well, I was going to say, you must have driven those coaches nuts with some of the antics. Now, there's a story, I think, you've told us in the past, I think, was it you and Reggett, you were late for practice, or close to being late for practice because you were playing cops or something on the way to practice, or giving tickets out or something?
Oh, pulling people over.
So how did that all, tell us that story.
Pull them over. Where are you from?
You just pull over into QEW and just start pulling cars over?
We had like a little fake siren, like Streets of San Francisco. What are you guys doing? people would be like going to work. We're like, where do you work? They'd tell us where they work, and we'd be like, all right, carry on. Then we'd let them go and pull someone else over. It's kind of stupid, right? But I guess when you're 19, it's funny.
So, but didn't somebody get you at the rink? They found out you were doing this and say, "What were you?" Because somebody recognized you guys.
I think Floyd Smith was waiting for us at the door on Church Street there where we walked in. Like, what is wrong with you guys? In disbelief that we were like that idiotic. It was a fun experience because we had an exhibition game my rookie year in Edmonton, and we actually won. They didn't have obviously their Stanley Cup lineup in there, but they had a few of the guys. But to see all the Leaf fans that were in Edmonton, it was like, wow, this is amazing. It was so cool. And that was like, that was part of being a pro athlete that I had never, like I said, I loved playing hockey and I wanted to be a pro hockey player, but it didn't define me or consume my life. It was, I'd have thoughts of it and stuff like that, but it wasn't like, my dad making me shoot or run or do, it was just work hard, coaches. I had good coaches growing up, teaching skills and all that, but it wasn't something that, was this all day, every day, nonstop thing. It was, but seeing those fans, and it was like, wow, it was like a whole eye-opening experience of how great it is being a pro athlete, especially as a hockey player in Toronto. Prankster was probably Dale Hunter.
Give us an example of one of his good ones. Now, JR, we got to tell you, Jeremy Roenick was on a couple weeks ago, and he faked his own death to scare a couple teammates one time. So, that was a pretty tough one to top.
Yeah, I don't have anything that good. I just have when I had a brand new truck that I bought, and Dale Hunter thought it was going to be funny to get the keys from the trainer and perpetrate, because Jimmy Wiseman, who was our off-ice official, was in on it, that my truck got stolen, and I was freaking out. And Dale was like stoic. I never had any idea that he's like, oh man, I can't believe this. He was like the guy, like consoling me, and rough, tough Dale Hunter being like a big brother, because he was the guy that was that did the whole crime. So it was pretty funny.
Well, I think the best pranksters are the ones that you don't catch. Those are the guys that are the best pranksters, yeah. And so he played that perfectly.
I didn't catch him. I was like getting ready to start crying, and they were like, "Fuck this guy, he's gonna cry. I better fucking tell him."
Oh boy! So I gotta ask you. We just did a video thing for you're involved. Well, maybe not this year. Well, obviously none of us are. We're doing it virtually, but the Easter Seals, and you and I, and there's a bunch of us that are heavily involved with them. We did a video, and before we were all on the Zoom call, and there was Al, the convertible, burning the tires, saying, "Okay, I'm heading to the border."